Hey everyone, Matt here from Docs Running, and today we're going to do a comparison review, or should I upgrade episode, of the Brooks Ghost 16 versus the completely new Brooks Ghost 17. Now the Ghost has been in the Brooks lineup for a while as kind of the standard daily neutral training shoe. Not the most exciting for a long time, just a shoe that a lot of people can get their feet into and get good walking miles in, some running miles. Not a fast shoe, not an exciting shoe, and one of the rare shoes now that had a higher heel drop, so 12 millimeters, and it just it was what it was. It was a Ghost. I haven't hated the shoe, but I haven't liked it either for the 10 plus years that I've tried running in this, and version 16 wasn't that different. There were still some good things that I think a lot of people might enjoy. But version 17 is a totally different shoe. I was really shocked. It has gained some weight, but ironically, it is the faster shoe and is way more aggressive, adding a performance edge to the Ghost that I don't think was there before. And it dropped the heel drop. So let's talk about these shoes, because the goal is to help you figure out which one might work better for you, because they are very different. If you're in version 16, should you upgrade to 17? If you've never tried these before and you're interested in the Ghost, which one might work better for you? I'm gonna try to answer that in just a few minutes. So let's get into specs for my men's size 10 first. Both these shoes are on the higher heel drop end. Version 16 is coming in at 36 millimeters in the heel, 24 in the forefoot for a 12 millimeter drop. And the reason I'm starting with heel drop first is because this is the first Ghost that goes to a 10 millimeter drop, to my knowledge. 36 millimeters in the heel, so same heel drop, but 26 in the forefoot for a 10 millimeter drop. And it actually feels lower than that. I was really surprised to say, this is 10? It feels lower. We'll talk about why that happened. From a weight perspective, version 17 has gained some weight. 16 in my size 10 comes in at 9.8 ounces, about 276 grams. Version 17 comes in at 300 grams, or about 10.6 ounces, again in size 10. So different rides, different feels, different uppers. Let's start with the ride first. So in the Ghost 16, and made the Ghost, it's a slightly softer ride, not bouncy, good amount of flexibility through the forefoot, and that's been there for a while. Higher heel drop, and there's usually been a decently clunky heel that's kind of, for me, has always gotten in the way. People that land further forward, it's not usually an issue, you don't feel it. Perfect heel strikers who like a big heel, great, high drop, and just a little bit clunky with a fairly smooth, not super exciting ride. Whereas version 17, even though it's supposed to be heavier, has a lower drop compared to 16, and has a far snappier midsole. Supposedly these are both DNA Loft version 3, but this one has a bouncier midsole. It's not super responsive, like it's not a Hyperion Max 3 or something like that, but it is much stiffer over the forefoot and makes for a much snappier shoe that it can easily handle daily miles, long runs, and actually doing some workouts in a much better fashion than version 16. So if you want something that can pick up the pace a little bit more, but isn't a full race or workout shoe and has that versatility, 17 is gonna be much better. If you just want an easy shoe, the higher drop rolls nicely, 16 is going to be the better shoe. And as I mentioned, this doesn't feel like a 10 millimeter drop. Part of the thing is the heel transition is so much smoother than any other Ghost I've run in. There is a posterolateral bevel. If you look at the lateral side, this does actually have a little bit that collapses down and makes that lateral transition really smooth. And Brooks has been doing a great job with a lot of their shoes on that realm. But the best heel transition of any Ghost that I've found, but it's also a little bit lateral biased. If you don't want that, version 16 might be better. But if you wanted something that's weirdly, I'm actually going to say this, maybe a stable neutral Ghost, version 17 is going to be better because there are actual sidewalls, although as some of the smart people at Brooks have told me, biomechanists, that sidewalls isn't actually the correct term. Top liner or a bucket is a better correct biomechanical term, but we typically use sidewalls. But the midsole does actually come up along the length of the medial heel, midfoot, and the lateral heel and midfoot. So if you actually want a more stable Ghost, and the midfoot is also a teeny bit wider with a little bit of more coverage on the inner side, this shoe is actually borderline stable neutral. Version 16 and the previous ones have never been so, right? Yes, there's a teeny sidewall in the rear foot, but usually the heel transition usually pivots you forward, so you need to have more neutral mechanics. So if you're sensitive to guidance measures, 16 is better, but if you actually want to try a stable neutral Ghost, version 17 is going to be the better option. I've been really surprised at how well it's kept me going. For someone with mild stability needs, it's actually done really well while not being a full-on stability shoe. So you want something that's almost stable neutral, a little snappier in your foot, feels lower drop compared to previous Ghosts. 17 is going to be the option. If you want something that's higher drop, a little more traditional, not the most exciting ride, but a good consistent ride, version 16 is going to be better. Fits are also different. Version 16, Ghosts have always had just a teeny bit more room, not too much, but just this for the 16 has been a little bit rounded the forefoot, which is really, really nice. It does fit a tiny bit short like a lot of Brooks shoes used to fit for me, but it breaks in really nicely. Nice secure upper, nothing too crazy to worry about. Normal it fit throughout the length of the shoe, no slippage issues, great. Version 17, much more for performance. The upper fits much lower volume, almost fits a little bit more snug. It does, once you get it on, start to open up, but this shoe fits a tiny bit more narrow compared to version 16. So if you want a little more performance fit that's gonna hold your foot and be a little bit more snug, version 17 is gonna be the better option. If you want something with a teeny bit more room, 16 is gonna be the option. The other thing is the heels are totally different. So fairly normal amount of heel collar padding in version 16. Version 17, there's a ton, and it was almost so much that it actually put a lot of pressure on my heel. My Achilles insertion's really sensitive, and the counter in 17 is way stiffer. That did break in. There's a lot of padding here, and as this kind of compressed a bit, it's giving me a little bit more room. But if you want a really secure and thick heel, version 17 is going to be better. If you want something more normal, 16 is going to be better, but people with a little bit more sensitive Achilles may have to be careful with 17 just because of the stiffer counter and just a little bit more padding back here, which ends up breaking it really nicely. So completely different shoes, both daily neutral training shoes. 16 is the more higher drop traditional version. If you want to get this on sale, if that's your preference, it's going to be a great option for you if that matches. But if you want something newer, a little more performance-esque despite the higher weight, a little more snug fitting, snappier, a little bit better for workouts, and definitely snug fitting and almost stable neutral, version 17 is going to be the better option for you. Today we're going to do a comparison review, or should I upgrade episode, of the Brooks Ghost Max 2 versus the new Brooks Ghost Max 3. Now the Ghost Max series is the update to the Dyad series, really Brooks' orthotic-friendly daily training shoe. And the Dyad was quite clunky, and a lot of people did like it as more of a stable walking shoe. A running shoe is a little challenging. You know me, I like a solid heel bevel. Didn't really have that. Now, transitioning into the Ghost Max series, the Ghost Max 1 was quite the update. Really changed a lot of things. Still that orthotic-friendly shoe, but became lighter, better heel bevel, better transition. Probably a little aggressive for what it was. That got a little overcorrected in version 2, which felt like it went more back to the Dyad, but that has not made it any less popular. Even though this is not my favorite shoe, I see it all the time out in the roads. It's selling very well in running stores. So the question is, if you like the Ghost Max 2, should you update to the Ghost Max 3? Or should you stay with that? Because I really like the Ghost Max 3, but the purpose of this review is help you figure out what works best for you. As always, we're going to start off with specs. So in my men's size 10, these are my own measurements. The Brooks Ghost Max 2 is coming in at 324 grams or 11.4 ounces. The Ghost Max 3 is coming in at 320 grams or 11.2 ounces. So a slight weight difference between the two, with Ghost Max 3 being a tiny bit lighter. Not even sure if that's really statistically significant, but a little weight difference. Stack height wise, they're exactly the same. 39 in the heel, 33 in the forefoot for a 6mm drop. Now that's where the differences end. While these might look similar, they ride and feel quite different. The fit's different, ride's different. So let's talk about those things and help you figure out which one is matching better your specific mechanics and fit. So in terms of the ride first, if you want a little bit more walking friendly, a little bit stiffer ride, the Ghost Max 2 is gonna be better. It has the things that I really didn't like. There's a very tiny heel bevel, which makes the rear foot transition pretty clunky. It is somewhat nice when you're standing, but for walking, if you're a rear foot striker or runner when you're rear foot striker, you should be typically walking if you should be a rear foot striker if you're walking typically, not always, but that transition was not very smooth. I really didn't like it during running. I just felt very awkward, clunky, really caused a lot of stress on my anterior shin and knee, just because when you don't have a super good transition to the rear foot, there's some forces that go there. Forefoot was fine. We'll talk about fit in a second. There's a little troublesome. I felt like I didn't have the right size, but just the heel was really clunky. Once you got past that, the shoe was a little on the firmer end. Compared to the softer Ghost Max 1, that was a little bit weird. I don't know if that's totally geometry, but I just found it wasn't as cushioned as I was expecting for DNA Loft version 3. Some people might be totally fine with that. I just didn't like it, and I really liked everything a lot better in the Ghost Max 3, which you can see much better heel bevel, transitions much more smoothly through the heel, midfoot, and forefoot. Still both have the nice wider midfoots to make this shoe inherently stable neutral, and there's some other factors that add to that. But just much better, smoother transition at the heel as well as to the forefoot. Both these are really stiff. If you have any kind of toe mobility problems, these are both going to be good options. I just found the Ghost Max 3 to be softer and much smoother no matter where you land it, no matter where you transition. Just felt really, really good, really cushioned underfoot, just as good for walking. I have 30 miles in my pair, and I have another probably 30 plus miles just walking and standing in them. It's been an excellent shoe, whereas I really didn't get that in the Ghost Max 2 because it wasn't as comfortable. So if you wanted a softer ride with a little bit better heel transition, actually a much better heel transition because of the better bevel, and a little bit earlier forefoot rocker, at least that's how it feels, the Ghost Max 3 is going to be a better option. Ghost Max 2 is going to be, if you don't mind a little clunky heel or you land farther forward and you want a little bit firmer shoe, that's where this shoe is going to be a little bit better. I just like, if we're going to use DNA Loft version 3, which they supposedly have the same foam, Ghost Max 3 is going to be better. In terms of which one's more stable, they both are really, really stable. Like I said, version 2 feels more like the Dyad, so if you really like that or missing that, that's going to be a better option. I will say the sidewalls aren't as intense through the whole shoe. They're more significant in the heel, but they do a good job of keeping the shoe stable along with the wider midfoot. The Ghost Max 3 has better stable neutral options, guidance options throughout the full length of the shoe. The sidewalls are a little bit longer on both sides, and there's a mild sidewall, and I should clarify, because the wonderful people at Brooks have taught me this, that typically in the industry, this is usually called like a sidewall. It's called a top line or bucket that continues into the forefoot on the medial side. So if you have some mild medial guidance needs, this shoe is going to work well for you. It's not going to do as well here. It's not unstable. It's just a teeny bit more stable in the Ghost 3. So if you like that, that's going to be the better option. Both of them have really thick insoles, so when you take those out, they are super orthotic friendly. There's nothing about this shoe that's going to get in the way of orthotics. If you really need orthotics, these do super well, and if you have a lower arch, the arch is not very high, so if that's something you're sensitive to, they're both really good options and share that. But the uppers are quite different. So Ghost Max 2, I felt like fit me a half size short. I probably should have tried that, but I felt like the toe box was really tapered, felt very short. It took me a while to try to get miles on it because I really didn't like it. I also felt it was surprisingly lower volume and didn't have as much room as I was hoping. So those with normal to narrow feet, this version actually might be better for you, whereas I really like version 3 that really has a lot more room. Much more comfortable for all day wear, much more what to me feels like volume in the forefoot, so more width and volume in the forefoot. The midfoot feels like its volume is more kind of normal, but you can loosen the laces and create more room. And the heel has just a little bit more width because it's not quite as padded as version 2. Version 2 had a ton of padding, which probably contributed to this shoe feeling slightly short. Not as much, but still a very nice plush heel with actually a little bit more flexible heel counter for those that are sensitive. I am very sensitive to them. It didn't bother me at all, either one of these, because there's enough padding that offsets that. So really similar but different shoes, similar in overall structure, very good orthotic friendly shoes. Ghost Max 2 is going to be better for those that maybe don't worry as much about heel transitions, want a teeny bit firmer shoe, maybe a little bit more snug, or some people might have to go a half size up. Version 3 is for those who want a better rocker geometry, better heel transition, better forefoot transition, a little bit more width, a little bit more volume, slightly wider fit throughout, but also softer and a little bit longer stable neutral mechanisms going into the forefoot. Both I think are solid. I just think the Ghost Max 3 goes in a better direction and is more similar to the Ghost Max 1, whereas the Ghost Max 2 is more similar to the Dyad series. Which one might work better for you is going to be, again, very unique to your unique mechanics. Ghost Max 3 works much, much better. I will also finally say neither one of these are responsive. They're not speed shoes. They're walking and slower running shoes if you want to get mileage in. But the one great thing about these are so durable. I cannot seem to break these up. The outsoles are great. So if you want a shoe that's, I think, worth the $160, either one of these are going to be good depending on which one fits your fit and mechanics most. As always, please let me know in the comments below, do you agree or disagree? I've gotten made fun of for the heel bevel on the Brooks Max 2 because I didn't like it. So feel free to rag on me as well. And last but not least, please Please, please let me know if this is helpful or not. I really do this because I want to be helpful, want to help you figure out what works best for you because I don't want you to get injured. I want you to be able to focus on your run and enjoy that. And today we're going to do a comparison review, or should I upgrade episode, of the Saucony Hurricane 24 versus the new Saucony Hurricane 25. Now, the Hurricane series is the premium stability shoe in the Saucony lineup, in line with the more standard Saucony guide. The Hurricane has been a long-term favorite of Doctors of Running, and then we thought it was dead. We thought it had been discontinued for a couple years and being replaced by the Tempest, and it turns out that is not true, and the Hurricane 24 came back as a revitalization of the line, featuring the first of the premium stability shoes to have a super foam midsole with full-length Power Run PB encased in Power Run for a more guided space concept, which Saucony has certainly been going all in on. There was some challenge with this shoe. A lot of people have liked it. I actually almost got it to 100 miles, didn't quite get it there, but it's been solved. There were some challenges that I think really need to be updated. And then version 25 just came out, where I've really liked a lot of things, but there's some other things where I've been a little, have some mixed feelings on. So normally I'm like really set and like, this one's better or this one's better. And I'm making this video not only for you, but for me to help get out my thoughts, because I'm a little bit mixed between the two of them. So as always, we're going to help you figure out which one might be better for you, and I'm also going to be trying to figure that out at the same time as well. As always, we're going to start off with specs in my men's size 10. So the Saucony Hurricane 24 is coming in at 316 grams or 11.2 ounces, so heavier on this side of the market, versus the 25 is coming much lighter at 10.6 ounces or about 300 grams. So pretty big weight drop between the two of these. And while the uppers are going to fit fairly similar, I'll touch a little bit on that in the end, the ride and stability are really different between the two of them. Now, 24, I mostly liked it. The heel is a little clunky because the bevel's facing the medial, which I don't like because that throws me that way. Sole setup and stability we'll talk about. The Power on PB was really nice. The only thing I didn't like was just a heavier ride. There was certainly some bounce to the midsole that offset that, but it was just a little bit heavy with the clunky heel. Wasn't the biggest fan. The midsole was balanced nice. I just wish it was lighter. Version 25 is certainly much lighter, and the Power on PB is much softer. So they did fix the heel bevel, so it's a little bit more lateral, and the way the Power on PB, because there's more of it on the lateral side than the medial side, compresses very nicely for those of us who land on the lateral side. But the ride is so much softer underfoot, noticeably softer, that it actually offsets the stability. It's nice when you're picking up the pace a little bit, and it's light enough that you can actually do that. Not obviously a racing or workout shoe, but it does have some versatility into faster paces that version 24 didn't. But when you're running slower or easy, it just kind of felt mushy to me. It feels very soft, which some people are going to really like. I tend to be sensitive to really soft shoes because I both have some stability needs at my ankle as well as my hip, and hip muscles have to work really hard when they're on softer surfaces. And that's kind of how I feel with this shoe. It's got some good stability methods. It's more biased than this version. It's just the softer sole. If you don't work well with really soft soles, this may not be the best option for you. Version 24 might be a little bit better, but if you like a really bouncy ride, version 25 is going to be better. If you keep a good pace, you're going to get a lot more bounce out of this version of Power on PB. Now, moving into the stability, the shoes are a little bit different. Version 24 certainly had a little bit more medial power run on the inside compared to the lateral side, but it was small, and most of the way the shoe is set up is very similar to the Tempest, where there's the power run encases the Power on PB, so it keeps you in the middle. It didn't feel like overly pushy, very centered ride. Didn't feel overly stable either because of the Power Run, but it didn't feel like I was biased to one side, but it didn't feel unstable. It was really nice balance of those. So those who like the guide but just wanted a heavier, more cushioned shoe really, really worked well. Version 25 is different. The way the sole is set up, there's a lot more Power on PB on the lateral side compared to the medial side. You've got a kind of post-like design with the Power Run coming a lot higher up in the medial midfoot and heel especially. And there's a lot more medial heel flare compared to the lateral side, which makes the Hurricane 25 much more laterally biased at the heel and a little bit in the midfoot. It does have the same situation where there's an encasing of Power Run around the Power Run PB, so there is still that center path technology that Saucony talks about, but it is much more laterally biased. So if you want medial support, version 25 is going to be a lot better. If you want to get pushed laterally at the heel and midfoot, this is going to be better. If you don't want that, version 24 is going to be better. The other thing I mentioned is the much softer ride. In my mind, makes this shoe feel not as stable. It's much more similar to the guide now, which feels not like the most stable shoe, but not unstable. It kind of keeps you in the middle. Outside of the lateral bias, much more similar there, just much softer, whereas I felt like version 24 was a little bit more stable because it wasn't as soft. So if you want not as soft of a ride, but still well cushioned, I would go with 24. But if you want a really soft and cushioned ride in a stability shoe, it's more mild, moderate stability, version 25 is going to be the better option. Now, I mentioned in terms of the fit, things are fairly similar. The only major difference is going to be in the forefoot and a little bit in the heel. Both of them are lower volume. The upper sits really low on the toes. It does stretch. It's got this nice like semi-knit upper that does have some stretch and breaks in. The difference in the forefoot is that I found version 24 to be a little bit tapered and it really pushed on the side of my toe, my big toe and my little toe. So I did have some chafing there. It was a little bit irritating. Version 25, they have widened that up a little bit. So those that were sensitive to that, this is not going to be as big of a deal. You're going to have a little bit more wiggle room. It's not massive. There's just a little more wiggle room in the forefoot. And in the heel snugs up a little bit. Most of the way this is designed, outside of a little bit more roughness on the upper, so definitely wouldn't use either one of these sockless. I would use socks with both, especially in 25. With the heels, a little bit more snug in version 25. A little bit more secure. Absolutely did not have to lock the laces down at all. Actually had to barely tighten them at all to get a secure fit. So a little more security here in 25, a little bit more room overall, especially in the heel. Not overall, a little more room in the heel, a little less room in the forefoot in 24. So similar shoes in terms of overall design, but really big differences in terms of how the midsole feels, some lateral bias at the heel versus a little more centered here, and much softer and bouncy ride in version 25, which is fine because that actually really sets this shoe apart from some of the other premium stability shoes because it is the only one with the super foam and definitely has the softest and bounciest ride on the market. So maybe Saucony might have a super stability shoe at some point. Who knows? Maybe. Is that what we're hearing? I don't know. That's just a common complaint. You can make fun of me in the comments below because I always keep asking for that stuff. But anyway, big differences between these two. Going to work differently for different people. Please let me know in the comments below. Am I making a big deal out of these? Is this more similar? Are they as different? If you've tried them, please let others know what you think about them and your own thoughts, because the whole point of doing this is to help others figure out which shoe works best for them. And as always, I'm doing this because I want to help, I want to educate, and I want you to be able to put these things on, not have to worry about them. Go out and enjoy your run.